and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another evening of fantastic and intense Porsche Cup racing action, for it is none other than the UKSimRacing community's Porsche Cup Season 5, brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks rounds 5 and 6 as we head to our third venue of 9 on the calendar. It is none other than the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, located in France between the towns of Magny-Cours and Nevers. This circuit, whilst not more commonly featured on calendars on the international stage these days, not compared to its popularity of old, and played stage 2 Formula 1's French Grand Prix from 1991 through to 2008. This is still a circuit that is frequented by other series on the international calendars, including the GT World Challenge over the last 3 years, and also plenty more, including the French Porsche Cup, and we also do have the FFSA GT Championship that has come to this circuit every year since 1997. But as our drivers get ready to go in the background, of course, this is a circuit that recently introduced to iRacing, will be one that will put our drivers to the ultimate test in learning the circuit rapidly and also getting used to the fact that this is a circuit which combines a variety of unique sectors and also a number of sectors which arguably replicate or borrow from other international circuits, including the likes of Adelaide in Australia, Imola in Italy, and plenty more. But as our drivers get ready to go racing today, we'd just like to point out this broadcast is being brought to you live for your viewing pleasure by the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. And if you are tuning in, you're not subscribed, why not do so today, so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts. In the commentary booth, you have myself as always, of course. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And as we get ready to go, let's take you through the calendar so far and what still lies in wait. Well, of course, our first two venues have been covered, and we continue to make our way down the calendar, coming into the conclusion of the first third of the season. We started off all the way back on the 5th of January in the United Kingdom at the Alton Park Circuit, and there in rounds 1 and 2 we got it underway with some fantastic racing action in the British countryside, and there we saw at the very tight and twisty circuit just how close you can go versus one another in the Porsche Cup 992 cars and get away with those battles. But in return, of course, we also saw some moments where drivers got it quite wrong, and they learned from those and then took that learning experience all the way across to the South American continent of what was then in the end the country of Brazil at the Interlagos circuit last time out on the 12th of January. And in rounds 3 and 4 it was the rise in the gold class of Tim Darracott, a driver who had a difficult day in rounds 1 and 2, but he completely turned around his fortunes and made it an opening win in his bank account for season 5 with the win in the feature and a stellar result as well in the sprint. And of course we did have quite the nasty shunt between multiple drivers on the start line at the start of the sprint, particularly in the gold class, but that ended up serving up to shake up the order, no doubt about it, as we went across the sprint and into the feature. But as we head to France today on the 19th of January, we've still got plenty more in stock for you as the time wears on the season, of course. In a week's time we'll be heading to Germany for the Hockenheimring in rounds 7 and 8, and there at the Baden-Württemberg circuit is going to be highly technical, with a circuit focused around arena complex sections, and then we'll be making our way up to Norway for the Rudskogen Motor Centre circuit in rounds 9 and 10. And then on the 2nd of February we'll see a circuit that puts the primary focus on track position, with overtaking being challenging but not impossible in the Norwegian forest. But you can imagine for all of our drivers there, they'll be bracing themselves for the fact they really need to put in that ultimate qualifying lap. Then we'll be making our way over to the United States of America for a double header, rounds 11 and 12 being at Belle Isle in Detroit in the state of Michigan. And then on the 9th of February we'll see our drivers take to our one and only street circuit for this series, and then we'll be continuing our way over to Road America for rounds 13 and 14. Well, on the 16th of February there we'll be going to the classic American circuit in the American countryside, and well, there's no quite circuit like Road America, and you'll get to see why. In our penultimate venue we'll be heading back to the European continent for Spain, the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, rounds 15 and 16 on the 23rd of February, and then we'll be bringing it all to a close. We'll return to the United States of America for the one and only Sebring circuit for rounds 17 and 18, and we bring it all to a close and the curtain comes down as of the 2nd of March. But we've got a long way to go, and with there being a long way to go, it's always appropriate, of course, to give you an update on our championship standings going into this round. And well, we start off with the Gold Drivers' Championship standings here. After 4 of 18 rounds in the Gold class, we can see that with that stellar set of results in rounds 3 and 4, Tim Darracott has jumped into the lead of the championship, but only by a single point. And with the Effect Esports driver leading the way, and Marcel Fritsch only 1 point behind, and then a further 4 points behind the pair of Lee Holmes and Joe Newman, with Holmes only ahead of Newman based on result countback. You can imagine the key theme here with regards to the Gold class is nobody has proven themselves to be Mr. Consistent or Mrs. Consistent over the course of each round. What they have found is that they've been consistent in individual races, yes, but nobody's been able to really strike the balance and find the way to charge clear with respect to the rest of their peers. But could we see Darracott do that tonight? Could we see Fritsch return to the top step of the podium? Could we see Lee Holmes and Joe Newman as well batter the way to the very top? Also Simon Bamber there, the privateer. Or what about the Apex Missers drivers there of Emil Koopmans and Danny Hugendorn, P6, P7, both on 26 points, two very fast drivers, albeit with Koopmans having misfortune at Brazil last time out and Hugendorn making his debut in stellar fashion. You would imagine that for Hugendorn and Koopmans it's going to be all about working together and finding that ability to get towards the front of the gold standings in harmony and then battling for the best possible result. We see Nathan Foss there on 21 points for simracing in P8 and currently trying to chase down the top 7, albeit he's got to be wary with Samuel K. Sproul there in P9 on 14 points, the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver, who is only 2 clear of Cameron Willersley for Willersley Racing, and both drivers there really trying to hunt down the top 8. But in return they have Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing at P11, not able to attend last time out due to illness, but I'm pleased to say that Ryan Walker is back as of today, and we look forward to seeing how he continues his campaign. And then we have Dan Blackwell from Simran Racing Academy, Steve Hughes, Corey Lazarus from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and Andy Jones and DCW Racing completing the gold standings. Coming on to the silver class standings in the Drivers' Championship, meanwhile, we can see Jack Ward leads the way by a margin that has been slightly reduced compared to how it was after round 2. Now an advantage of 14 points over Roxanne Marshall. The Willersley Racing driver here, really the top driver at the moment. It would be considered with regards to overall consistency, but not necessary in terms of pace. Because whilst Roxanne Marshall there on 39 points, a 24-hour bunty pupil, putting in a very good set of results over the course of the season so far, it is the P3 name there of Ash England for Willersley Racing that all eyes are on tonight. Of course, when he made his debut last time out in Brazil at the Sao Paulo circuit, we saw Ash England absolutely dominating class by a considerable margin, and well, if that is going to hold true here at Magny-Cours today, then we would expect that Ash England will be right up there at the very top of the standings alongside Jack Ward, his teammate, come at the end. But can Roxanne Marshall and Ward hold England at bay? Indeed, can anybody stem the tide with Shane Piggott there in P4 for 88 Tech Racing Team Red on 36 points, 10 clear of Team Cyan, 88 Tech Racing driver Alistair Hatcher from the sister team, and then we can see that outside the top 5 a further 2 points behind Ross McFowle and James Kersop a further 3 off, and those two drivers there looking for a bountiful award of points, given the fact they've had a bit of misfortune in both of our venues visited so far, and they'll be looking to try and avoid the bad luck today. Glenn Humberstone there on 20 points, only ahead of Craig Shield based on result countback. The Team Purple driver for 88 Tech Racing ahead of the Team Cyan driver, and then Ashley covered out, completing the top 10 for Simran Racing Academy on 14 points there, only 2 clear of Matt Maddox, and the BDM Racing driver will be looking to try and one up Coverdale today, ahead of Dad's Fellows in P12 for BDM Racing as well, and Darren Eels there in P13, completing the run in the silver standings for 88 Tech Racing at Team Red. Now we come on to the team standings here, and as we look to the complexion here after 4 rounds, what we can see is Simran Racing leading the way by 6 points over their closest rivals, Apex Missers, but there's little between them at the moment, and it's all swings and roundabouts with regards to who's going to be at the top of those standings after this round. Effect Esports, meanwhile, in P3, they're on 43 points, really finding that run in the form of Darracott, of course, last time out, and looking to creep their way up into the top 2 today, with WS Racing Esports down on 40 points, and we'll be introducing one of their drivers who's joined us as of this pair of rounds. We're introducing them very shortly, and then we can see that further single point of 88 Tech Racing Team Purple holding on to the rear end of the top 5 right now, with a sizable 12-point advantage over Willersley Racing in P6, who in turn have a 15-point advantage over Blackout Motorsport New Zealand. Blackout Motorsport New Zealand looking to try and turn things around today after a difficult time out in Brazil last time out, and then Simran Racing Academy, Satellite Racing and 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan completing the run to the end of the top 10, with BDM Racing there the best of the rest in P11 on 4 points, joint on 4 points with 88 Tech Racing Team Red and 24-hour bunty people, but of course here it's all based on result countback, and that's why BDM Racing is ahead of their rivals. And then last but not least, in P14, yet to score any points in the team's championship, DCW Racing. But coming away from our standings then to our circuit for today, allow us to introduce the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours circuit. Located closer to the town of Magny-Cours than it is the town of Nevers, so that's why we refer to it as located in Magny-Cours of France. This circuit, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, thank you to them, of course, the wonderful simulator and the circuit map, is a circuit consisting of 17 corners, and it is a highly extended circuit. With the fact that this circuit runs over a variety of straight, medium speed, high speed corners, and also some very heavy braking zones lines and chicanes thrown into the mix, you would argue this circuit has got a little bit of everything. But what does it perhaps lack? Well, significant elevation change. This circuit has one of the lowest amounts of elevation change compared to the circuits on the calendar, and particularly compared to Interlagos last time out. But as we take our drives around the lap, we'll get to see them make the way down towards turn number 1 off the start-finish straight and into the Grand Curve, or the Grand Curve, and as they make the way through the left-handers to turns 1 and 2, they then get onto the trail braking zone for Estoril Corner turn number 3, and as they bring the car in towards the turn 3 apex, it's all about being able to get back on full throttle as soon as possible. But of course you don't want to get on it too soon, because otherwise you may find yourself understeering wide and picking up a track limit penalty. Now if they nail it right, they'll carry all the speed in the long straight down Gulf through the kink of 4 there and down to the braking zone for turn number 5 at Adelaide, named after the hairpin at Adelaide Circuit in Australia. And as they get onto the brakes there for turn number 5, the lowest speed corner on the circuit, they'll make their way out of the hairpin and charge through the kink of 6 and head into the Nürburgring chicane to turn 7 and 8. And as they roll the way on through, a chicane that's quite similar to the Vidal chicane at the Nürburgring, our drivers will then make their way into 180 at turn number 9, a corner of course named after the fact that it turns our drivers completely around through 180 degrees. And as they make their way out to 9 through the kink of 10, it's a flat out run through the kink of 11 as well, and up towards the chicane at 12 and 13, known as Imola, named after the chicanes of course at the Imola circuit in Italy. And then they'll make their way up to the rise into the braking zone for turn number 14, the second hairpin known as the Chateau de Eau, as they make their way into the right hander there, a very tricky corner and a prime position for overtaking, as they then make their way out of the hairpin, down through what is known as the chicane straight, and heading into the Complexe du Lycée, the final 3 corners there, and a rather unique sequence of corners with a sharp right angled first gear corner, or second gear in the case of Porsche Cup cars, as they make their way through turn number 15, and then they'll come through the chicane of 16 and 17 to start it all over again. But also the timeline right on the exit of turn number 17, whereas the start line is a little bit further along the start finish straight, and that's something a little bit unique there. So our drivers will tick on laps, or in terms of bring those laps on through in the race very early on as they make their way out the chicane, whereas they'll be starting a little bit further up the road. As we come on to our rules for today, in terms of qualifying, just to give you a reminder, qualifying is a lone qualifying session whereby we'll see all of our drivers head to an isolated instance of the circuit where they'll be able to put in their qualifying laps. They shall have 8 minutes to set their best possible time, no lap limit, they have 8 minutes in total. And in terms of the races shall commence via the standing start, as we always do in the Porsche Cup at UKSimRacing. The sprint race grid shall be set based on the results of that qualifying, and the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race, with the top 8 positions inverted. So the winner of the sprint, they'll be starting P8 for the feature, and we take it all the way down to P8 starting on that reverse grid pole, and then P9 and downwards will start where they finish from the sprint race on the grid for the feature. There is no mandatory pit stop requirements in the sprint or the feature race. One fast repair is available in each race, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 14 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. Let's head to our live pictures here as our drivers make their way on around and take you through our schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC. We're in just under 3 minutes time. We'll be heading into our qualifying session, 8 minutes in length there. Will be 8 o'clock this evening. We'll see our drivers ballot out to be on pole, and then we'll head straight into the sprint race at what will be a 10 past 8 with 12 minutes of racing action, and then we'll take a brief breather of a couple of minutes before returning just before what will be 8:30 this evening for the feature race, and that'll be 30 minutes in length, 2.5 times the time duration, but no pit stops included, and therefore tyre degradation could indeed be a major factor in terms of the success of our drivers in the race. But as we look from our schedule to our drivers making the way on around, we do look to Emil Koopmans here, who locks up into turn number 14 there. The apex misses driver, clearly missing his apex there, but of course he won't be living up to the literal feature of his team's name, wants to nail those apexes left, right and centre as he comes on down in towards turn number 15 into the Complexe du Lycée, and as he makes his way into the chicane here, currently P4 in this final practice session. Indeed, a lot of times coming on in at the moment, and quite a golf in lap times you can see there outside of what is our top 4, all separated by 3 tenths, and then you do have a whole half a second to Cameron Willisey, but the man who's setting the time tower on fire right now is none other than Lee Holmes at 88 Tech Racing Team Purple. I think it feels like he missed out a bit of an opportunity last time out in Brazil to really nail a pair of results to his bank account, with the fact it worked out very well in the sprint, bringing on home ahead of Tim Darracott, but in the feature it wasn't to be, and it all went wrong in the run at Juncal Corner at turn 12 in Interlagos. But here today it's a reset, he gets to go once again, and can he turn around that misfortune from the sprint in the opening race of today, indeed keep it all the way running on through the feature. But as he heads to the timing line there at 38.329, the lap he set so far, as he heads into turn number 1. It's not just about the drivers of old, but it's also about newcomers, as we see here for WS Racing Esports. Philip Hammer making his debut in the series today in the number 60 car from Germany, and we look forward to seeing how Philip gets on over the course of the season. Of course, joining his teammate Marcel Fritsch, and good luck to Hammer on his debut, and we'll be watching eagerly here, and I do believe there's a good number of you in the YouTube chat who may be cheering him on as well. But as we say hello there to BRM Sim Racing, Newman Pass, also to Medmo there, and Nathan Scott. Good evening to you guys. I hope you're all doing well, and if you haven't said hi and you feel a little bit shy, don't worry about it. You're all welcome here at UK Sim Racing, and if you don't want to say hello, that's absolutely fine. But either way, I hope you're having a great week so far. It is Thursday evening. Friday is just around the corner tomorrow. The weekend is almost upon us as well, and what better way to head into the final day of the week than some absolutely brilliant Porsche 992 Cup car racing today, as our drivers get set with only 30 seconds to go in this final practice session. But as we do continue to just trickle the time on down, we're just going to take a moment to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that if you are enjoying the racing of the season so far and you're wondering how you can support UK Sim Racing, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? And indeed, you'll see some of them on the sides of the cards that are racing around here today as part of sponsorship. And well, UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real world motorsport companies, including Swello Meta Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweets. And if you do head to our website, and our website popping up on the screen very shortly, and there it is, you'll notice slightly off screen now on the bottom left hand corner, there is a button called Discount Stroke Affiliate Links. And if you click on that button, you'll be taken to the following page, which does have the logos of all of our affiliates. And if you click on any of those logo images, you can make purchases through them, which result in discounts for you as the consumer and a kickback to us at UK Sim Racing. And in turn, as we are a non-profit organisation, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, including future editions of the Porsche Cup, the GT3 League, and plenty of other series that we have planned for 2023 and onwards as we continue to grow. Additionally, some of our affiliates provide discount codes, which are available in the UK Sim Racing Discord. So if you're not part of the UK Sim Racing Discord, well, why don't you join today? And indeed, you can chat to all the drivers and the administrators. And do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. But I can tell you one thing that also goes a long way today, and that is a good qualifying lap here to scare the fear into your fellow rivals with regards to the fact that you seem to have that mastery of the wonderful circuit known only as Magny-Cours. But as our drivers make the way around, and we do seem to have lost our circuit map on the right hand side in the top right corner of your screen, so we will just reload our overlay to make sure it comes on back. I think he decides to go hiding there. We see Marcel Fritsch out braking themselves into the turn 4 hairpin, in the turn 5 hairpin in fact, and as he brings it back together, coming back onto the circuit. Adelaide didn't quite work out, and well, for Fritsch, he's definitely going to have to make sure that doesn't happen again. Of course, cold brakes and cold tyres, there's going to be a feeling for that, as we do see Glenn Humberstone here making the way out of the pit lane. A very tricky pit lane exit, I can tell you, these cars, because you have to stay on the wide and outside line going through turn number 3 at Estoril Corner. And of course there, where the road depresses slightly and then rises back up, that leads to a lot of understeer. And given the fact you're coming out the pit lane on relatively cold tyres on a circuit which hasn't really been rubbered in too much in this qualifying session, it means the car will feel as though any moment it just wants to go straight on them rather than corner and through, and you have to be really hesitant on that throttle. But as we do see here, Humberstone making his way on down, and we do look to Danny Hugendorn making his way up towards what is the Nürburgring chicane. A lot of our drivers getting themselves set as he rolls his way on through the chicane sequence here and coming up towards turn number 9 through 180 as he makes his way on in here. It's all going to be about gradually bringing yourself in. And you can see Hugendorn there just braking on apex. I think test out whether the brakes have got enough temperature in them, and also whether the tyres are starting to feel the heat and really starting to grip up on the circuit. Well, that way he can start to push them a little bit more and therefore have that confidence when he tries to get the power down at 180. Indeed, any of these corners which are power zones on exit, he'll be really able to abuse that rear wheel drive as he makes his way through. Goes a little bit deep there, coming through at turn number 14 at the Chateau de Haut, and as he makes his way down towards Lycée, still pushing on. As we do say hello there to Lewis Willisey, good evening to you, and also there to Scott Larvin. But as we see Hugendorn making his way on down, we do have a couple other drivers heading towards the end of their warm-up laps and heading on to what will be their first flying lap very shortly, including Shane Piggott here as the 88 Tech Racing driver comes on down, and we're going to be riding on board with the silver driver for a reference lap here. It'll be his first flying lap of the circuit, and as he comes on through the chicane, he makes his way across the timeline very shortly and down towards turn number 1 he goes. Now as he accelerates on down here, going up through the gearbox up to what will be 5th gear in corner entry, in fact stays in 4th there and lifts off instead and brings the car on down. And as he comes into turn number 3 into Estoril Corner, Trow breaks down to 3rd gear, lets the car go deep, brings the nose on in, and now it's full throttle all the way, but you can see that a little bit of hesitation with the left-hand side tyres. Just do not quite have the grip available yet. He's got to get a bit more tyre temperature in them, but he now makes his way down the long Gulf straight through the kink of 4, bringing the car over to the left-hand side here to get ready to go onto the brakes, using the white markers in his left-hand side on the grass. There's his brake marker, braking at about 140 metres from corner apex. Out to Adelaide he goes, gets the power on from first gear, clears the slightest corner, and now makes his way up towards the Nürburgring chicane. First he's over the kink of 6 and heading into turns 7 and 8. Here it's about being bold on the brakes, just a dab of the brake, drop down to 4th and carry the speed as he now makes his way up into turn number 9, braking very early here to avoid locking up the brakes and just gradually bring the car down slower and slower. Stays in second gear, interestingly there, so that way he can get the power down a bit more aggressively. Coming through the kinks of 9 and 10 very shortly, and up towards 11 he goes, and as he makes his way up towards Imola at turns 12 and 13, now onto the brakes there, about 75 metres from corner apex, rolls the car on through, makes sure to mount the curbing, and now into the hairpin here at turn number 14, down to second. Down to first he goes, very deep, power just carries a bit too much speed, but also lets the car roll through to avoid locking up the brakes and therefore abusing those front tyres as he now comes down the back straight run here, coming down what's known as the chicane straight and in to the Complexe du Lycée as he heads onto the brakes there at about 75 metres, comes down to second gear, powers on out, and now he's got to line it up, straight line between the two apexes, bounce over one, bounce over the second, point the steering wheel straight and plant the throttle, and it's a relatively clean lap there from Shane Biggett. A couple of mistakes thrown in, but that is there, a 42.015. I think you'll feel as though there's a bit better out there, but still that puts him P11 on the grid so far as more and more lap times do come on in. Now as our drivers make the way on around here, of course, currently the fastest man on circuit, albeit he would argue that it's not by enough at the moment, is Tim Darracott by only a margin of 8 thousandths here, and will the traditional Darracott-Holmes rivalry to be the fastest man over a single lap in the Porsche Cup Series continues, and it's Darracott who right now has struck first blood effectively, but will we see Holmes retaliate shortly? Of course, these two exchange lap time like no other pair of drivers we have seen in recent times, and as he makes his way down into turn number 14 here, bringing the car through the right-hander. Well, can the Effect Esports driver here now something a little bit faster? Well, I can tell you right now, his Sector 1 is the fastest of everybody, but Philip Hammer there goes provisional pole on a 38.489, and he's just gone purple in Sectors 2 and 3, so I think here Darracott and Holmes may have a couple of other drivers around them who are going to be arguing the case of pole position as well, and Davidson Hammer definitely making his case as the Darracott coming across the timing line there, and he goes P2 on a 39.159. It is 6.5 tenths off of Hammer. And Philip Hammer right now, if you want to make a bold statement with half a qualifying session left to go, that is how you go about doing it. Because right now, Philip Hammer definitely flying high for WS Racing Esports. Now, can anybody close it down here with the fact we do not have overtime in qualifying? So right now, with the lap time being approximately 1 2/3 of a minute or 1 minute and 40 seconds, our drivers do need to start heading on to their final lap soon. Otherwise, they will not get another lap in. But a margin of half a second as Lee Holmes goes a little bit faster. And meanwhile, in the silver class, where it's closer margins there with Jack Ward, the Willesee Racing driver here, championship leader going into this round, edging Kersop by a tenth so far as he parks up and he decides enough's enough, so Ward will not be going again, and now the impetus is on Kersop to try and improve right at the end of this lap. He won't get another lap in. He makes his way into 14. He's improved in Sector 1, but as he makes his way out of 14, he's not improved in Sector 2. It's all going to come down to perhaps arguably the most awkward part of the circuit, Sector 3, where you may have nailed Sectors 1 and 2. Sector 2 is the hardest sector because of the fact you've got so many blends and different types of corners, but here it's that chicane which if you get it wrong it destroys the entire lap. He doesn't get it wrong there, and as he powers to the line, Kersop, does he improve? It's a 41.9 in. It's not enough improvement, but meanwhile coming across the line there, goodness me, he has put the hammer down. That's not to pun his surname, but it's just the truth of it right now. Philip Hammer with a 37.916, that's a whole second faster than Lee Holmes right now, and that is a major gap in the field. What I think as Tim Darracott does improve and brings that deficit down there to 8 tenths in P2 of 38.711, I think we're going to be hard pressed in the final 30 seconds to see anybody dethrone Hammer's time, and that is absolutely incredible. Meanwhile, looking to the silvers here, when we see Craig Shield making their way down towards the turn 5 hairpin of Adelaide, and as he comes on down, he's only a tenth off of Roxanne Marshall, who's P3 in the class, P12 overall, but he's not going to have enough time to do it. So it really has been a shootout between Jack Ward and James Kersop, and as soon as I say that, an 88 Tech car goes pole in the silver class. It's none other then Glenn Humberstone. He leaves it to the very end with a 39.704, and he gets it done as Sproul moves to P8 at the finish line, and that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the grid for the sprint. So they line up as follows. So round number 5 of the Porsche Cup Season 5 is hosted by UKSimRacing, brought to you today at the Magny-Cours circuit. Philip Hammer on his debut takes an absolutely phenomenal pole position lap for WS Racing Esports there by a whole 8 tenths over Tim Darracott for Effect Esports. Behind him on row number 2 is the ATEC Racing Team Purple driver Lee Holmes, joined by Emil Koopmans for Apex Missers. On row 3 we have the pair of Marcel Fritsch for WS Racing Esports, joined by Cameron Willesey for Willesey Racing, and it's Nathan Foster for SimRacing, joined by Samuel Sproul from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand on the 4th row. On the 5th row, we have your silver pole sitter and his closest rival, Glenn Humberstone there for ATEC Racing Team Purple, joined by Willesey Racing's Jack Ward. And outside the top 10, starting off our 6th row, it's James Kersop, the privateer, joined by Apex Missers driver Danny Hugendorm. Then behind him, on row number 7, we have the pair of Roxanne Marshall for 24 Hour Punty People and Craig Shield for ATEC Racing Team at Cyan, with Ash England for Willesey Racing and Shane Piggott for ATEC Racing Team Red, line up in the 8th row. 9th row goes to Matt Maddox of BDM Racing ahead of Corey Lazarus of Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and then Ryan Walker from Satellite Racing starts off our 10th row, joined by Alistair Hatcher for ATEC Racing Team at Siam, and then our last driver there, Ross McFowle, P21, starts off a lonely 11th row of the grid, but he won't be lonely from the start, of course, because he'll be looking to try and capitalise on any mistakes that drivers make into the opening 3 corners. But as we get ready to go here, the grid is continuing to form. We have just got 30 seconds before they do get underway from the standing start, and well, can Darracott or anybody find a way to contain the pace of Hammer? Of course, that was over a single lap, so we can't read everything into it, but you'd imagine for this sprint race, with only being 12 minutes in length, Philip Hammer right now, if he can get the launch and the clearance coming all the way out of Adelaide, because of course we do have the major slipstream run down the Gulf Straight on the opening lap, well, Hammer might just run off into the distance and leave everybody fighting, but the gridding's complete. We await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 5 of the Porsche Cup Season 5 as Hammer gets a good start, but meanwhile Lee Holmes cannot find the run versus Darracott as they come up towards turn number 1, and as they make the one through, Fritsch and Cameron Willesey there side by side, and Fritsch gets ahead as Willesey backs out. Meanwhile behind, Jack Ward getting a good start versus Glenn Humberstone, so we've got a car off already, and that is Corey Lazarus, I believe, going very sideways on the run out of turn number 3, but as they make the way on through here and down towards the Gulf Straight, we see them make the way all the way on through the kinks here, and now it's into the heavy braking zone for the first time of asking. Onto the anchors they go, cold brakes and cold tyres. There's a knock to a driver behind. More drivers come on in here, and oh goodness me, it's carnage at turn number 5 as that's at least 4 drivers involved in a huge smash as we had one driver lose at the rear, I think take to the grass, and the car went on round. Lee Holmes is pointing the wrong way there on the grass and reversing it off the circuit, and we've got a lot to dissect on this open lap already, and we're not even halfway through it, but as they make the way on through, well, Glenn Humberstone's all gone wrong for. Meanwhile Craig Shield has inherited a good number of places as a result of this, and as they make the way on through, we've got a spin, I believe that maybe James Kersop is pointing the wrong way. He's pointing back the right way now, but he's going to drop all the way down the order after a brilliant start for the 99 driver. But as he gets himself back up to speed, we can see right now so many drivers losing out. Marcel Fritsch there having to battle with Matt Maddox as Maddox goes on through, and Fritsch with a wounded car cannot keep it together at the moment in terms of places. He's got to try and just bring it into the pits, but definitely a lot of drivers carrying wounds right now on their cars as we look to race leader Philip Hammer, who stayed clear of all the carnage on the opening lap, and right now is holding a comfortable lead as he heads towards the timeline to the end of lap number 1. As he makes his way on through and heads down towards turn number 1 once again. It's Hammer ahead of Darracott by 8 tenths a second, followed up by Willesey in P3. Then it's Foster behind P4, followed by Piggott in P5. Your silver leader there, Shane Piggott, ahead of Roxanne Marshall P6. Then we do have Walker 7th, followed by Hugendorn 8th, England at 9th, Lazarus at 10th, and then best of the rest, Craig Shield there, P11, as they make the way into turn number 1 and 2 in quick sequence. We've got so many drivers in the pits, we've got a car in the wall, and that is Danny Hugendorn there. The Dutchman's gone charging into the wall, and well, that is a disaster too soon for the 992 driver, and he will not have wanted that after what was avoiding all the carnage on the opening lap, and now he's found the tyre barrier in the run to Estrel Corner. But as he gets back up to speed here, I was just about to say we've got a number of drivers in the pits, but meanwhile one driver making sure they're not in the pits, instead making the way to the very top of the silver class. Roxanne Marshall with 24-hour Punty People takes the lead of the class over Shane Piggott there. We catch the tail end of the move, we'll try and get a replay back of that in short order, but Marshall gains. Now they make the way down towards turn number 9 here at 180, and of course having made the move, can Marshall hold on to it for the conclusion of the race? We've got a long way to go, albeit it's only 9 minutes, but right now I think for every driver, given what's happened, they'll all be aware of what happened on lap number 1, and I think they'll all be hoping that nobody makes that mistake again, even in isolation. But as they come up towards the Imola chicane here, you can see that Schill behind Lazarus, and Lazarus trying to get a move on here in the gold class between the two silver drivers as they come on through. And we bring that battle box up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen to help you track what's going on your screen, as we do see Schill making his way out to turn number 14. But meanwhile, it looks like Roxanne Marshall now making progress versus Nathan Foster here, and Will the Briton is absolutely charging on through and picking off a gold driver or two along the way. But as they make the way on through the chicane here, of course now Marshall will have the pressure building from behind, as meanwhile we've got a driver off in the gravel there, and that is Jack Ward in the gravel, and it was followed suit from Ash England, who was the first one to go into the gravel there. Well, Jack Ward will not have been wanting to replicate what he saw from his Willesee Racing teammate, but they've been able to replicate one another's mistake there as they make the way onto a third lap. And well, for many drivers here, many of the favourites, it is all going drastically wrong. But I can tell you right now that for one driver here who's trying to recover, he's trying to do something right with regards to getting back up there in the order. We can see here Emil Koopman's battling for P7 in the gold class versus Samuel Sproul as they make the way down through turns 1 and 2, and we ride on board. Now here as they make the way down through the right-hander, you'll notice initially the car just not quite fighting in the dirty air of Sproul, who gets the power down, and there Koopman's just turning a little bit too soon, in fact, in getting the power on the grass, and therefore he had to back off. And now in the extended tow, he's halfway down the straight at this point, gap 2.5 tenths as he gets ready to go into the braking zone here, but he's going to have to wait. He's not close enough to do so. To go from that far back, we'd be licking the stamp and sending it first class. So they make the way through Adelaide and head up towards the Nürburgring chicane, but Sproul, they get a much better exit out the corner and open that gap up to almost 9 tenths as they now power their way down towards turns 7 and 8. But as they make the way on through, we do start to have some replays come on through with regards to that opening lap incident, and well, I believe we may be able to see what happened to Samuel Sproul firstly. This was in the run down towards Adelaide corner on lap number 1. Now, can we see what happened here? There was a bit of contact there between the Willesee Racing car, and in return, Sproul there being knocked on through. So that does explain a little bit of the story in terms of what exactly happened, and I'm trying to see what else we can gather from that. And I think Ward may have been involved in that contact, so they headed on down, and Ward in that contact then tapped the back of, well, in fact, tapped the back of a car and also went his own way to the left-hand side there. So it did really come together. And as we looked at Emil Koopmans in this whole instant as they made the way on down, well, Koopmans was minding his own business, battling for P3 here. And as he came down to the brakes, when you see the ATEC Tech car, you do see there Sproul going straight on through after the contact of Jack Ward, and Koopmans there just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's what brought them all together. Now after that, well, for Lee Holmes it all went wrong there as he came on through, and I think Lee Holmes might have been sporting some damage out the hairpin, and that damage saw him go off, and he's had to recover the car gradually back to the circuit. But meanwhile, we return to the live pictures there, not to spend too much time away from the race. And actually, in fact, we just have had Ash England find his way past Craig Schill as they make the way up towards turn number 9, and the Willesee Racing driver, they're gaining ground, and we will take a look back at how that exactly played out in a very short order. But meanwhile, Craig Schill gets it wrong and has to take to the escape road there at the Nürburgring chicane. He brings it back on, but he does have to take a slowdown as a result of having cut the chicane completely off. And meanwhile, Ward, they're going very deep as they make the way through into the second half of the race, and as they come charging on up towards turns at 12 and 13, shortly in towards Imola. Now Jack Ward wanting to take a piece of Schill, and well, of course, going that deep and wide at the Nürburgring chicane, what it will have done for Schill's tyres, it will have given him some rubber in terms of that extra pickup on the tyre, and it's not going to be comfortable for a couple of braking zones there. We'll just find that the ability to brake will be compromised slightly, but once he's got rid of those marbles, then he'll be back up to speed, and he wants to be back up to speed as soon as possible, because Ward right now for Willesee Racing will want to hunt this down as quickly as he can, for the simple reason I think he will feel as though he's lost out on the podium here, and he'll want to definitely finish inside the top 5, and Schill is the key to unlocking a place in the top 5, with right now Jack Ward in P6 in the silver class, and his rival ahead starting off that top 5 run. But as they make the way across the timeline, you can see behind there Ryan Walker, the gold driver, currently running P5 and gold class, what is P11 overall, best of the rest in the field. And Satellite Racing driver here trying to close on up, I think feeling that dirty air off of the two Porsches in front, and therefore trying to focus on his exit at Straw Corner. As they make the way out here, trying to use as much width as possible in order to go on the offensive, and this gives us a brief moment to take a look back at how Ash England made the move for what was P9 overall on Brian Walker. Well, this was only moments ago under braking into Adelaide, and well, there were multiple drivers off here, so that, and goodness me, there's a car pointing the wrong way as well. I'm not quite sure what exactly happened there. I think there's been quite a shunt between drivers. We We take a look back from Corey Lazarus's perspective, and where it's just a spin for Lazarus that sent him on a round, and then for our other drivers as well, Ryan Walker there with an off-track. So that really explains what happened, but that was not the way they wanted it to happen in regards to the mistakes being made by drivers. As we return to the live pictures, we are hearing that Hugendorn has had another moment on circuit. Danny Hugendorn, who is down in P16 overall in what is P9 in the gold class here, but with 4 minutes to go, our drivers continuing on. And well, we did say earlier about the fact Roxanne Marshall making the move for the lead of what was the silver class, and well, we're going to bring you a replay of that as of now. And this was back on lap number 2 versus Shane Piggott. And of course, these two really benefiting from the instant on the opening lap. And there we see Shane Piggott just locking up the brakes, and Marshall simply saying, well, don't mind if I do, I'm coming through, and taking the lead of the class and never looking back so far. But that's the key replays that covered from the opening couple of laps. We now return to the live pitches and stay with them for the time being, unless anything else of major note does happen. But it seems though something of major note is happening every 30 seconds or so at this rate of knots. But as the drivers press on, things do seem to have calmed down a little bit. And we look to the front of the field here, and well, Philip Hammer, of course, having put a pole lap in, which really put him miles clear of the field in terms of relative lap time. But the WS Racing esports driver here, under race conditions, is not dropping Tim Darracott as much as perhaps we anticipated. And could this be a sign here of either Hammer right now? He's got the lap time on a single lap, but perhaps not the pace over the entirety of the race to maintain that level of pace, but instead having to turn it down a notch or two. And in return is Tim Darracott right now just observing what his rival's doing and thinking, you know what, okay, he's doing this slightly differently to me in this corner. Is he taking a different line from me, yes or no? And therefore trying to adjust the corner and gain a little bit more lap time. Plus as well, he has got the toe as they make the way on through turn number 14. But as they head on down towards the Complexe du Lycée here, 15 through to 16 coming on up, we do have some battling further back, and we've got a car pointing the wrong way there, and that is Jack Ward, who has found himself pointing the wrong way after a spin at 180, and he's got himself caught there, as I think the car is really struggling with its rear tyres right now every time he tries to get the power down. But meanwhile, Emil Koopmans battling on past Matt Maddox there. Maddox not giving up as they make the way in towards Imola, and when the end Koopmans gets headed, Maddox backs out as they make the way through turns 12 and 13, and that's a P13 overall, not a class change given the fact Koopmans gold class, meanwhile Maddox in the silver class. But Maddox there definitely not giving in as they make the way out of 14 and head on to another lap. Now the leaders are already down towards the halfway point of the Golf Straight at turn number 4, so we will have another 2 laps with regards to the laps that our drivers are currently on, albeit our leaders are, I believe, effectively, no, they will get 1 more lap out of the car, our leaders, so we will have 2 more laps as Emil Koopmans goes on to the penultimate lap of the race. As he crosses the line, we will be seeing a grand total of what will be in the end 8 laps of racing here in the sprint. And well, for Koopmans, it's all about trying to find his way past Samuel Sproul now as they make the way down through at turn 3, and in the rise they go as they exit on out. Now coming on through Sproul, they're getting a lot of understeer on corner exit, but you can see there how Koopmans, like coming up so close so early there, having to calm the car down a little bit, but well within 2 tenths, and this will be enough in the draft, presuming of course he's not running a huge amount of rear wing. And Will Sproul puts the car on the inside here, they battle on the brakes. Koopmans tries to go all the way around the houses here at Adelaide, and as they come on through, well, New Zealander Samuel Sproul here does a brilliant job of defending, but now they've got the run up towards the Nürburgring chicane. No real overtaking opportunity coming up immediately, but there will be the potential run at 180 should Sproul have a poor run through as he leaps it over the curb there of turn number 7 into 9. He goes, trailing the car all the way in, and very smooth under braking there. And Koopmans, I think, really will need to try and force the initiative if he wants to get a move done, because I think Sproul may just have this in his back pocket. As meanwhile, the leaders have gone on to the final lap as they roar their way into turn number 1, and as they come down towards 3, once again it is Hammer ahead of Darracott by a margin of 1.5 seconds as Darracott continues to give pursuit, but is losing ground it would seem, albeit on that last lap sets a purple sector 1. But meanwhile Hammer responding with a purple sector 3. The 2 drivers are trying to exchange the lap time, as meanwhile we see Roxanne Marshall a little bit further back. They're going on to her final lap here, silver class leader at the moment, P5, 4.5 seconds clear of Shayna Piggott, who's P2 in the silver class. As we see there, Piggott and Ash England roaring the way on through, and Ash England right now being gradually closed up by James Kirstop, but not a rate knots, which is enough for Kirstop to put the threat on. But meanwhile, as we do look to Sproul here, what a lift off, and I believe Samuel Sproul will slow down coming out of the chicane, so that will be for track limits in the final sector, and he's had to give up the place to Emil Koopmans. As meanwhile, Corey Lazarus here now under pressure from what is Ryan Walker, having only just passed Ryan Walker moments ago. Well, we'll stay with him as they make the way down towards Adelaide, and then we'll take a look back at how the move was initially done. But I think Lazarus gets this hooked up, gets it parked on braking, but Walker chicane as they make the way on in. We do take a quick look back at what exactly happened. Well, this was under brake, and then we can see Walker just goes overly deep, and that sets up the run for Lazarus. But we must cut back to live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, because here are your race leaders, and the checker flag will await them very shortly. And what a way to start off his participation in the Porsche Cup Season 5. Puts it on pole by almost a second as he comes out the final two corners. He'll be your winner in the sprint race. It's Philipp Hammer from WS Racing Esports, the German driver, leading the way across the line. Ahead of Tim Darracott in P2 there for Effect Esports, and it'll be Karen Willesee who comes on home to complete the golden overall podium there. P3 for Willesee Racing, not quite on the pace of the top two, but still a stellar result. And it'll be Nathan Foster P4 ahead of your silver winner of Roxanne Marshall there, the 24-hour Punty people P5, but winner in class, taking the first win of the season ahead of Shane Piggott and Ash England at the line. And Shane Piggott with P2, his highest finish of the season so far. James Kirsup holds off Craig Shield. That's the run to P9, and that's the top 5 of your silvers. And then Corey Lazarus completes the top 10, 5th place in the gold class ahead of Ryan Walker as they come on down. What a brilliant try at a recovery from Ryan Walker, but it wasn't to be. And then Emil Koopmans recovers to P12, setting his fastest lap at the end of the race. Samuel Sproul P13, and then we can see here Danny Hugendorn coming across the line. P14 for Apex misses. Not his race so far after that major incident on the open laps at turn 3. Matt Maddox completes the run of the top 15, and it'll be Marcel Fritsch here, and different fortunes for the WS Racing Esports drivers with Fritsch P16, and then it'll be Jack Ward very shortly coming on down for P17. We can confirm that Lee Holmes has just finished his race P19, a lap down, staying in it to win it to the very end, but as Ward makes his way on through here, what a difficult race it has been for the Silver Championship leader as he just gradually brings the car to the line, and Glenn Humberstone coming on through as well as Ward crosses the line, and Glenn Humberstone will be our last lead lap finisher in P18. We also have the two retirements of Ross McFowle and Alistair Hatcher, as now we do get ready to go over to the feature. But before that, we do take a breather and bring you those race results. Well, here are the results then for race number 1 of today, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, what a difficult race it was for many a driver. Been round number 5 of the Porsche Cup Season 5, hosted by UKSimRacing here today at the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. Philipp Hammer taking the win in the end by 1.2 seconds over Tim Darracott, with Karen Willesee there P3 and Nathan Foster P4. The top 4 all gold drivers, and therefore Hammer, Darracott and Willesee your gold podium. And then we see Roxanne Marshall P5 there. Highest position overall of the season so far for Roxanne Marshall, and also her first silver class win. The 24-hour Punty people driver beating Shane Piggott to the line by 6 seconds in the end almost, and then Ash England completing the silver podium in P7. James Kirsup P8, Craig Shield P9, that's your silver top 5, with Corey Lazarus there, gold P5, P10 overall for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and then Ryan Walker best of the rest there for Satellite Racing in P11. A difficult race, but you can turn it around in the next one. And then we see Emil Koopmans P12 ahead of Samuel Sproul P13, with Danny Hugendorn and Matt Maddox completing the run to P15, and carrying on down the order there, P16 Marcel Fritsch having a difficult comparison of results compared to his teammate who's joined as of this round. And then we see what was Jack Ward P17 ahead of Glenn Humberstone, and then Lee Holmes, the last of our finishers, albeit a lap down. Alistair Hatch there P20, Ross McFowle P21, and I believe that is your standings complete for race number 1 here in France today. And we're only 30 seconds away from going racing once again very shortly, and who out of our drivers will be able to have a much more fortunate race, of course, with so much misfortune. Well, we're not going to be too far away now. We have only got what is about 20 seconds to go, and it'll be a 30-minute race coming up shortly, the 30-minute feature, 2.5 times the time duration, no pit stops. It's all about conserving the car, conserving the tyres, and also knowing when to push hard versus when to roll it back and focus on holding on to position. But we get ready to go racing then, ladies and gentlemen. The checker flag comes on out on this practice warm-up interlude session, and now our drivers will be heading to the grid. So as they make their way to the grid, this is how they line up for round 6 of the Porsche Cup Season 5. James Kirsup takes a reverse grid pole there and ahead of Ash England. I do believe our grid is set correctly, albeit we've got some erroneous times there, but we can see that James Kirsup taking the pole position ahead of Ash England, with Shane Piggott P3 and then Roxanne Marshall P4. Nathan Foster P5, joined by Cameron Willesee on the 3rd row there, and we can see the top 4 of silvers ahead of what is then the next 4 drivers who are all golds. And could we potentially see a silver overall winner? Well, that would be a question we'll answer. And then Tim Darracott and Philipp Hammer run the 4th row. Then it's Craig Schilt and Corey Lazarus on the 5th row, joined by Ryan Walker and Emil Koopmans behind on the 6th row. And as we continue our way on down, we can see it Samuel Sprout and Danny Hugendorn on the 7th row, with Matt Maddox and Marcel Fritsch on the 8th row, Jack Ward and Glenn Humberstone on row number 9, and then Lee Holmes and Alistair Hatch on row 10, and then Ross McFowle, last but not least there, starting P21 on row number 11. But as our drivers get ready to go, we're not too far away from going racing once again. The green process is complete, we await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for round number 6 of the Porsche Cup as James Kirsopp gets a good start versus Ash England. They make their way down towards turn number 1, and as they come charging through this instant already, and Tim Darracott and also what looks to be the Sim Am car caught up as our drivers make their way on down for Estoril corner. We've also got a couple of others who've been wounded there on the opening corner, but as they make their way through turn number 3 and onto what is the run down towards Adelaide hairpin. Well, I believe Roxanne Marshall having a difficult start and dropping her way down to P4 as well, as we see Marshall in the rear of the picture, but it's a rivalry between Ashington and James Kirsopp as they make their way into turn number 5 for the first time of asking. A little bit further behind, Emil Koopmans there on the inside of Samuel Sprout, tries to get the move done, but Apex misses. They make the way on through. I think everybody right now being very cautious and sensitive to turn number 5 on the open lap, given what happened previously. We've got a little bit of a moment going on further back, and Tim Darracott stifling his way at the inside of Jack Ward, and I believe coming out to the Adelaide hairpin, we can see that Marcel Fritsch has also moved ahead of Lee Holmes. It's all shaking up. We've got Danny Hugendorn in the pit, and well, we have got the early retirements of Alistair Hatch and Ross McFowle. I don't think made it to the grid, either of them, but I could be wrong in that regard as we look here to the battle for what is P13. Fritsch just ahead there, Lee Holmes and Ryan Walker, as they all make the way on cold tyres through 180. As they come through the kink there at 10 and up towards 12 they go. Well, we've got plenty of battles a little bit ahead of this group as we see that Craig Schilt some damage on the front of the car, and well, he's trying to hold off everyone behind. Now Shane Piggott looking up the inside. It's going to be side by side through the Imola chicane as they make the way on through, and Piggott carries the speed on through. Glenn Humberstone tucked in behind, and meanwhile a little bit further up the road, Ash England dropping down the order like a stone. I think there's been an instant for Ash England. We're not quite sure what's happened, but it all is kicking off wherever you look on circuit right now, and as they make the way on down the hill, we can see Glenn Humberstone here chasing after Lee Holmes, but he's got also a bit of damage by the front, the looks of things on the front of the car. But as they make the way through the Complexe du Lycée, he's got Ryan Walker and Marcel Fritsch behind as they head on through onto lap number 2. So after one lap, we can see here is your race leader of James Kirsopp, the privateer in the 99 car. He is clear of Cameron Willesey only by 0.3 of a second as they make the way down the Gold Straight. I think Cameron Willesey trying to size up a move. Philip Hammer in P3 just behind this pair, as you'll see him in the background as the camera turns on around, and as they make the way on down towards Adelaide. Well, Kirsopp here doesn't need to battle this if he just wants the class win. All he needs to do is keep it together lap by lap, corner by corner, as we see there Philip Hammer closing up on the top 2. Next Corey Lazarus in at P4 behind, followed by Samuel Sprout in P5, and then we can see Matt Maddox P6 ahead of Emil Koopmans P7, as Koopmans here trying to make the move on Maddox, and of course these two no strangers to one another, hand battled one another hard in the sprint race, and then Roxanne Marshall is in 4 places early on in P8 here, followed by Ashington P9, and then Lee Holmes a little bit further back in P10, head of best the rest there Shane Piggott as they make the way on through and into 180 themselves. But as they come on down into the braking zone for turn number 9, we look back up to Roxanne Marshall, who finds herself right now in a back and forth between Emil Koopmans and Ash England, of course conscious and needing to stay clear of the silver driver behind, but at the same time wanting to try and get past Koopmans or have Koopmans past Maddox, so that way she can go on the offensive versus a silver rival in front. But as they come on through at turn number 14, we look a little bit further back to Ryan Walker, who's now starting to gain a bit of ground on Shane Piggott, but he'll only be battling for overall position as Piggott then the silver class versus the gold satellite racing driver. But Piggott gets it wrong. He locks on the front right brake and goes to the gravel. It's wrong there for Shane Piggott, but it's right for Ryan Walker as he makes his way down towards the Complexe du Lycée. Meanwhile, we look to the leaders here, and now James Kirsopp is starting to form a little bit of a traffic jam. And indeed, some of you right now may be getting flashbacks to Spa-Francorchamps in season 4, because the driver behind Kirsopp was the silver driver who caused the gold traffic jam. Of course, now Cameron Willesey in gold class has to try and do what he was able, not to quite able to finish off what was at Spa, which is he'll need to go on through here and make the move, whereas at Spa he wasn't able to keep them all behind. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 5 right now, he looks down the outside. James Kirsopp defends here, onto the brakes they go, and Kirsopp wanted to prove a point as they make the way through, and that is gold star material as he comes out of Adelaide and up towards Nürburgring he goes. Meanwhile, behind, Philip Hammer capitalises there on the inside. He'll put him on the inside in the run into the Nürburgring chicane. He's going to take the move there, and Cameron Willesey loses the lead of class whilst battling for the lead of the overall positions as they make the way up towards turn number 9. Now as they come roaring on through the left hand here, we've got a bit of smoke, and no, it's all gone horribly wrong for James Kershaw at 180, and he loses the lead of the silver class there, and Roxanne Marshall retains the lead of the silver class. And well, the 24-hour punty people driver right now, I think, might be smiling a little bit for the simple reason it all went wrong early on, and now it's all going right, but we've got a very long way to go. We are not even a sixth of the way there yet. We haven't even cleared 5 minutes, let alone 30 of them, and right now it's anyone's guess who's going to be on the top step of each of the class podiums, indeed the overall podium, given the rate of attrition we have seen for so many drivers here. But as they make the way on down the hill and down towards turn number 15 here, Marshall right now will be looking to keep her cool and just focus on putting the laps in. The 5 drivers ahead are all gold. She can just let them go. Doesn't need to chase them down. The key one here is Ash England, however, who is trying to really push on. Marshall on that previous lap of 41, well, in fact, a 40.24. Meanwhile, Ash England a 41.75. So Marshall really putting a strong lap together. I think Ash England as well may have had a mistake or two on that lap, and therefore has lost out a little bit as they come on down. As they make their way through, England goes a bit deep there, has to try and bring the car back onto circuit for all 4 wheels rather than just 2. And as they make the way on through, a bit of gravel there for Matt Maddox, but he keeps it pointing in a straight line there, and that could have been so horribly wrong for the BDM Racing driver as he now makes his way down the Gulf Straight. But as he heads on towards Adelaide here, you can see James Kershaw looming large in our camera as he comes on down towards Adelaide himself, and I think he wants another pip of the pie in terms of trying to take the win here in class. He's definitely got the pace to do it. He's definitely got the form. He just can't afford the mistakes of that one corner that thwarted him in the sprint. It's thwarted him again in the feature so far, but he's going to try and conquer it, of course. That is 180 at turn number 9 as he comes on through Nürburgring. Little steps here, as meanwhile we see Ryan Walker battling with Tim Darracott, as meanwhile Marcel Fritsch has actually picked his way past Ryan Walker, but Darracott trying to get as close as possible. Walker goes a little bit on the middle of the road there, a bit deep, and I think Darracott thinking that Walker was going to simply go straight on, but Walker brings it back together, and they all just avoid contact as they make the way in the run up towards Imola, and we ride on board here with Tim Darracott. Now charging into the right left complex here. Of course, the change for Darracott is he wants to carry speed, but he's a bit close there in the run into the chicane, and therefore has to back it off slightly as he breaks his wound in. We're hearing that Matt Maddox has had an off track a little bit further up the circuit, and that's released James Kershaw back into what is a P8 overall, P3 in the silver class. As they make the way on down, Maddox there just in the foreground, in the background we should say, of the camera shots. They made the way into turn number 15, losing some ground to Lee Holmes, but as they roll on through, we've got a bit of smoke there. That's a bit of a lock up by the looks of things for Marcel Fritsch, who just brings it back together after locking up into the chicane. As they power their way down towards turn 1 into Curva Grand once again, rolling their way through the left-hander and down into turn number 3 they go, and there's a lock up there from Walker. He goes straight on, and we can see that Tim Darracott comes on through, as meanwhile Ryan Walker brings it back together and avoids it being a major disaster. But still, I think for Emil Forsberg it's a bit disastrous to lose the ground to Tim Darracott, who is doing well to keep at bay as they make their way down towards Adelaide. As they come roaring on down here, the roar of the Porsches, 510 horsepower apiece in each car, and meanwhile further up the road in the gold class, Emil Koopmans finds his way around the outside of Samuels Brand to Nürburgring. As they make the way down to 180, you can see they're all stacking up together, and Roxanne Marshall now trying to get into the mixers. Meanwhile, we've got a driver off here, and that's Karen Willesee doing literally what James Kershaw did only 2 laps ago, and the Willesee Racing driver now loses out from the battle for the lead of the gold class and drops the P5 in class P7 overall, but head back up to his peers who've gained a run into the podium slots here. Emil Koopmans P3 in the overall and gold classification now. The Dutchman will know this becomes ever more precious at Apex Bliss as they make the way out to turn number 14 and down towards 15, coming on down in towards the braking zone and bringing it in to the Complexe du Lycée. And well, Samuel Sproul's not going to give up by any means of the measure, but how exactly did Emil Koopmans make the pass for what is effectively P3 in the end? Let's find out. Well, as we get the replay here, and well, it was all about the drag race out of Adelaide hairpin, and Koopmans on the outside, Sproul on the inside. On the brakes they went side by side in, but in the end Sproul backing off slightly there. 9, it's not a too wide corner unless you're both fully committed to take all the speed out of the car, and deciding to play at the discretion as he made his way out of the chicane and up towards 180 there, and really trying to make the move. And we were following them from that point onwards, and of course the mistake for Cameron Willesee. But as we return to live pictures here, Sproul not giving up, currently sat 3 tenths behind as they make their way onto the brakes for turn number 5 once again. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, Lee Holmes here battling with James Kersop, and up the inside he goes. Not really defending this too hard, but meanwhile, Marcel Fritsch there taking a peek at Matt Maddox, but in return having to worry about Tim Darracott as he looks up the inside there. Maddox getting a little bit of a tail slapper with regards to coming out of the corner, getting on the power a bit too soon, but he's been able to keep it planted in a straight line so far. But Fritsch will try and capitalise on this to clear the silver driver and then go hunting after James Kersop before he can finally go hunting after another gold driver in the form of Lee Holmes. But as they make their way into turn number 9 here, all line astern for now. Nobody really trying to step out and gain an advantage. And I think given the fact we're not even 10 minutes in, we're just about to complete the 10th minute, it does mean for a lot of our drivers right now, they've got to be conscious of the fact that they may have taken a lot out of the tyre before they've even made it to the halfway point, particularly if they've had a spin or a number of lockups under braking. Those front tyres are going to be feeling it on lockup, and in return, those rear tyres are definitely going to be feeling the wear every time they spin. Alternatively, trigger a little bit of excess wheel spin as we see there. Maddox locking up again into 14, really struggling with that front right brake, a good number of drivers, as meanwhile Fritsch has to defend here versus Darracott as they make the way on down and into turn number 15 they go. Darracott looks up the inside, Fritsch brings it into the centre of the road, uses Maddox there as a little bit of a spacing bar on the outside, and as they make the way through the chicane, heading on to another lap, well you can see that it's building. Ryan Walker's also in this medley, also Nathan Foster just behind, and Fritsch defends it into turn 1. Darracott looks to go around the outside, in fact Fritsch in the end looking to go side by side with Maddox. It's going to get very tight as they come down to turn number 3, but they all safely navigate it, and Maddox loses the 2 overall places. But to be fair, I think there his heart might have been absolutely ready to burst out of his chest for the simple reason you never go too wide for turns 1 and 2, let alone that 2 wide twice in a sequence. And as they make the way down, well Darracott's not done, he's cleared Maddox and now he wants to get back ahead of Marcel Fritsch as they make the way into the break-ins over Adelaide. Fritsch on the inside, Darracott on the outside, onto the brakes, and the effective esports driver they just cannot seem to find a way to rustle the defence of what is Fritsch, and instead right now the only driver who will be feeling as though he's being rustled to push even harder will be the Britishman of Darracott as they make the way into the Nürburgring chicane. But as they roll the way through, Ryan Walker tucked in behind Maddox. He'll want to clear Maddox for the simple reason he'll see Darracott and Fritsch battling ahead, and he'll be thinking, I want to be there, I want to be able to capitalise when it all goes wrong. And as they make the way out of 9 into 10, not that it will go wrong, but he needs to be there for it. And as they make the way out towards Imola right now, Maddox definitely proving to be a little bit of thorn in the side of every gold driver. And to be fair to Maddox, this goes to show how much underlying pace he has and also his ability to defend quite well. But he goes a bit deep there, holds the inside line. I think he's going to let it go versus Walker. As you can see, Foster there trying to capitalise on a cutback, but just not able to get the power deployment as they make the way down towards 15. But as they come on down, then Nathan Foster right now, the SimRacing driver, definitely I think feeling the pain of being the last guy in the group of 4, but looks up the inside there. Maddox, as Maddox locks up the brakes, and Foster gets it done there. That front right brake on Maddox's car definitely taking a beating as they bounce their way over the chicane. And meanwhile, we do look to Marcel Fritsch trying to hold on to position in this battle to be P7 in the gold class versus Tim Darracott, P10 overall, as they make the way on down. Now to clarify, we have had 4 retirements in this race. We've had 2 retirements on the grid of Alistair Hatcher and also Ross McPhail, and since the start of the race we've had the retirements of Danny Hugendorn and also Jack Ward, but we still do have 17 runners, including one who is a lap down, and that is Craig Shield, but otherwise our other 16 drivers on the lead lap. But right now Fritsch here having to defend once again. It's deja vu into Adelaide as they make the way into the right hand, and this time Darracott looking for the cutback, and he sized it up much more effectively this time as they make the way out. We've got a car sideways, so that's Maddox in the rear view picture. We'll take a look back at what happened shortly, but Darracott still just not able to get enough speed to get the move done. It's almost as if he's got everything hooked up and the car just simply says, and we've run out of gas to do the final part of the move there. But he's really started to put that pressure onto Fritsch as if he wasn't already, and you can imagine now Fritsch will definitely be wary of the fact that a bit more pressure could see him make a lock up. But as they make the way through 10 and up towards 12 they go in the charge of the Effect Esports drive, definitely trying to bang on the doors of Fritsch and bring him on through. But meanwhile we look to our leader here of Philip Hammer from one of the WS Racing Esports drives to the other, and currently almost 5 seconds clear and holding on comfortably as he makes his way across the timeline and down towards turn number 1. But as he comes on through here, Corey Lazarus away back, but at the same time looking to just consolidate this position. As meanwhile Ash England, they're going very slowly, and I believe Ash England may have just had an off track as we've got Glenn Humberstone's had a bit of a moment, and Humberstone pointing the wrong way at 14 on corner exit there, and that's gone very, very wrong for the 88 Tech Racing Team Purple driver. But meanwhile, whilst it's going wrong for some, right now is going right for Marcel Fritsch, albeit I don't think he'll want to be battling for P7 in class, but still, when it's between him and current championship leader and also his rival, what the fact these two are separated by a single point in the standings, I think if Fritsch can get a one up on Darracott, it will mean a lot more to him as they make the way down towards Adelaide once again. On golf they go, and Fritsch this time really having to put the car on the inside line immediately to signal his defence, but again, Darracott just not close enough to be able to go round. He looks instead for the cutback again, but he's tried this multiple times and it has not worked out. And meanwhile, Ryan Walker there up the inside of James Kersop, and Nathan Foster trying to come on through as well, but as they make the way down towards what is turn number 8 in the charge here. In fact, turn 7 and 8 in Complex, you can see Ryan Walker now ahead of Kersop and comfortably trying to edge away from Nathan Foster as they make the way in to 180. As they come on through at the left hand here and make the way on back up towards the end of the infield section. Fritsch right now still battling with Darracott, and Darracott now the closest he's been over the course of all this battle, and this is one of the closest rivalries in the circuit. It's gone a bit quiet in the top 8 right now, so we focus on this battle for P9, and where you see Darracott on the inside, and there Fritsch leaving the door open, seeing Darracott going for the move, and Darracott there trying to intimidate. Intimidation is working, but it's not enough as he still just cannot get enough acceleration out of the corner to be able to complete the move, or put himself at least on the inside into the Complexe du Lycée to be able to threaten to get the move done. And as they make the one through the chicane once again, Fritsch holding on, but again this is going to be a test of stamina, and we've only just cleared the halfway point as they go onto their 10th lap under racing conditions here in the feature in round 6, and as they make the way through 1 and 2. Well, right now, what else can Darracott throw at Fritsch? I think at this point he's thrown everything bar the kitchen sink, to use old English proverb, as they make the way through Estoril Corner at turn 3 and up towards Adelaide once again, in the gap this time 4 tenths, and I wonder if Darracott may just have to back it off slightly for a lap or 2 just to cool the tyres down and get himself set up to attack again on the later laps. But as they come on down, we look there to Nathan Foster in the rear of the picture, battling with James Kersop. Foster on the inside, Kersop on the right of your picture, as they make their way down towards turn number 5. Gets the move done by the looks of things. Foster's able to park it on apex and power out successfully, which he does, and Nathan Foster does clear a little bit of a speed bump in his race with regards to trying to hunt down Ryan Walker. And James Kersop right now running P3 in the silver class. I don't think he'll mind it too much, but I think given the highs that he was running on at the start of this race, I think he would like to finish inside that overall top 10. But as they come on through, we look from what is a battle between golds and silvers to one silver driver. The leader of the silver class of Roxanne Marshall is being caught by the gold driver of Karen Willisey in the battle for P5 overall as they make the way through turn number 14. Marshall continues to just focus on one thing alone, and that is not making an error. And it sounds simple, but it is not in these Porsche Cup cars, with the fact they have no ABS, they have no traction control, and of course, and it's Magny-Cours circuit, you have every type of corner imaginable apart from heavily cambered corners in which it will unsettle the Porsche 992 Cup car, as we see Marshall coming on through here, the chicane. But as they make the way onto another lap, onto lap number 11 turned here, still plenty of time to go. Willisey is getting closer and closer with every lap turned, and the Willisey racing driver here, I think, will be trying to think about that move coming up in short order if he's able to pit Marshall to the post. But as they head on through turn number 3 and down towards 5, they roar. Meanwhile, a little bit further up the road, already making their way down towards Adelaide, Emil Koopmans here, who currently lapping on the 39.31, his previous lap versus Corey Lazarus on the 39.76, and therefore taking up what was 4 attempts out of his rival, as the New Zealander in front right now, still what is 2.2 seconds clear as they share the camera space for a brief while. And well, for Corey Lazarus, well, the pace may not be on the pace of Philip Hammer, who currently is lapping 1.2 seconds a lap faster based on the last couple of laps, which is absolutely staggering when you think about it, and Hammer definitely just trying to fly away. Meanwhile, Lazarus here focused more on just consolidating that P2 at this point and not stepping out of line as they make the way in towards Imola. But as they come on through, of course, he will have that growing pressure from Koopmans, and Koopmans is getting closer. In fact, the gap now down to 2.1 seconds. It's coming down very gradually over the entirety of the lap, and with a long lap here, that goes to show you the equality between the two drivers there. But Koopmans finding a couple of attempts, whereas Lazarus is not. And as they make the way in towards turn number 15, shot with Samuel Sproul right now. Of course, Samuel K. Sproul, the teammate of Corey Lazarus, would love to try and get in the fight for that P3 and make it so that Blackout Motorsport New Zealand have both of their drives on the gold podium, and also the overall podium with that. As they come on through the final corners and go on to their next lap, we look at the lap times, and I can tell you right now, Corey Lazarus a 39.33, Emil Koopmans a 39.36, Sproul a 39.13. So there's a bit of oscillation in those lap times, and Sproul definitely matching the pace of Koopmans as they make the way through 3 once again. Meanwhile, Cameron Willesey here inching closer still to the back of Roxanne Marshall as they make the way down for 3 and onwards towards 5. They charge, but as they roll the way on out and come on through, well, right now we can see that Cameron Willesey almost losing it slightly. They're just dipping for a very brief moment the rear left tyre towards the gravel, and of course that exit curve there does slightly depress away from the track surface, and that can unsettle the rear car by default as they make the way into Adelaide. But the drivers coming together, and Lee Holmes closing up here, looking like a bit of a missile in the braking zone. Then the ATEC Racing Team Purple driver, P6 currently, he's gained 12 places since the start of this race, and he is charging as meanwhile Nathan Foster up the inside of Ryan Walker into Adelaide corner as he comes on out there, and Nathan Foster gets the move done on Ryan Walker. He's been chasing after that move for the best part of 10 minutes. He's finally got it done for P9 in the gold class, P11 overall as they make the way in to the chicane. But as they come on through, we take a look back at exactly how the move occurred. Where it was a straight line run in the end, through Gulf they went, and Foster peeling to the inside of Walker, not defending it too hard here, and I think relying on potentially a cutback alternatively. Foster just getting it wrong and all the way off circuit, but in the end Walker not putting the defence up perhaps that Foster may have been expecting. I think Foster as well deciding to go on the inside early to make sure he could get the place sealed and done, given the pace he's been showing at relative between the two drivers. But still there's a long way to go, and the delta between them in terms of lap time, only a couple attempts lap on lap, and Ryan Walker may just be trying to conserve the tyres a little bit and push on in the final 5 minutes to go on the offensive. But meanwhile off circuit again and really struggling at the Complexe du Lycée is Ash England, who drops down to P10 overall, but still P2 in the silver class. As meanwhile, oh goodness me, and Nathan Foster there pointed sideways and deciding to drift his way onto another lap with the SimRacing driver there. I think the suspension may have come down a little bit hard off of the turn 17 apex, and that's what's caused it to go in such a manner. We will take a look back at what exactly happened there very shortly, but that's not the way you normally want to make your way onto a lap here. And meanwhile, as he powers on down, well, Ryan Walker now does have a 1.1 second advantage. I think Foster will be kicking himself knowing he's got it all to do once again, as James Kersop behind just watches on as they chase the way down towards turn number 5. As they head into the braking zone here, and well, now for James Kersop, can he get a bit closer to his gold appears in front? We get to take a look back at what exactly happened to Nathan Foster. Making its way on through the chicane, bounced over there, and where the car came down on the left-hand side with both tyres out up in the air, two-wheeling for a brief moment. That's what caused the rear of the car to unset on the suspension, where it can take a bit of a beating, but it won't want to take that every lap as he made his way back up to speed. But as we return to the live pictures, we look up to Lee Holmes here, battling with Cameron Willesey, and with that having just made the move on Cameron Willesey as they came on through the Imola chicane, and now making their way down towards the Lycée as they head on through in the pursuit of Roxanne Marshall. And well, I think Lee Holmes at the moment really trying to push home the pace, but in return now his next target will be at Samuel Sproul in P4, who is a whole 7 seconds up the road, and they've only got 8 minutes plus the final lap to go. Can Lee Holmes pull off some magic in the last few laps of this race to potentially get himself inside the top 4, or will it be P5 in the gold class that is the best he can achieve today as he makes his way on down towards turn number 3? Now I do agree with you there, Medmo, with regards to Nathan Foster's brief moment. They're very well held to keep the car pointed in a straight line, and as they make the way on through turn 3 right now, great to see so many of you tuning in there, including Holger, who we did not say hello to earlier, and also at Dad Time Racing, who points out Hammer is running the default fixed setup. Well, definitely right now, Hammer is absolutely flying on that default setup and making it work a dream. But as we continue to see our drivers making the way on around here, of course we do see Glenn Humberstone a little bit further back with a slightly crumpled front bumper there, albeit it may have just been the camera angle, but he is closing up for P5 in the silver class, running P6 at the moment. He's chasing after Matt Maddox here to get into the silver top 5 at the very end of the race, as they make the way on down and through at turn number 3, as we hear that Craig Shields had an off-track in P17, and we believe that off-track has occurred at the final pair of corners, and he may have just gone a little bit deep before heading into the chicane. But as our drivers make the way through, you can see Humberstone there with some front damage, and look at the speed differential here. Despite having the toe coming out of 3, he's just nowhere near close enough, and that front aero damage is definitely really limiting his top end speed, even in the draft. And for Humberstone here, we can understand now why, whilst he's been running very strongly through sectors 2 and 3, his sector 1s are just nowhere near the pace compared to the drivers in front of him as he makes his way on through the Nürburgring chicane. But as he makes his way down into 180, it will all be in the corners that he's got to try and get it done. done as Maddock goes straight on, and it goes wrong with the BDM Racing driver. He just stops it in time, but it could have gone so far worse if he'd not got it stopped and it gone to the gravel there. I think that would have been into the tyre barrier, but unfortunately brings it back. Meanwhile, we look up to Roxanne Marshall here, who does look to have let Lee Holmes go into turns 1 and 2, and as they come down to 3 now, Cameron Willesey will look to try and pick the way past the 24-hour Bunty People driver, for the simple reason that Willesey's race is with Lee Holmes. It's not with Roxanne Marshall in terms of class classification, as they head on down towards Adelaide via Golf, and there Marshall on the inside. Willesey looks about and thinks about it, but he can't quite find the speed at the moment, and Marshall running a lot of straight line speed on the car, but decides in the end to back out of it into Adelaide and let the Gold drivers go. And I think Marshall very aware of the fact that after picking up a maiden win in the sprint, could make it 2 out of 2 in the feature, and that would be a huge achievement for the Briton in this season to date. But as they make the way into Nürburgring, still a bit of pressure potentially building from behind from Ash England, or the gap there standing between Marshall and England, and a whole margin of what is, if we do a bit of quick mental maths, of 8 seconds almost. I think for Marshall right now it would require a huge mistake for her to fall back into the clutches of England as the Willesey Racing driver makes their way through the left-hander turn number 9. As they come on through 180 and up towards Imola as they go. Nathan Foster meanwhile is closed back up to the back of what is Ryan Walker, and as they make the way down towards Imola themselves, well, I think it is definitely going to kick off again between them, the battle for P9 in the gold class right at the end, as James Kersop there 2 seconds back continues to watch on with a bit of a popcorn seat view, if you will, as they make the way into the right-hander of 14, but rolling them out. Foster really digging his bangs into this one and pushing onto the tail of Walker as we ride on board with the SimRacing driver. Now making his way down into the braking zone here, getting ready to try and set up the move. It's not going to be here, but he has to straighten the steering wheel briefly there. I think through fear of a little bit of lock-up on the brakes as he makes his way over the curves there. And well, goodness me, if he's looking to catch airtime, he's found it aplenty as he makes his way into turn number 1, showing no fear of bouncing over those curves. And as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2, if you are of a bit of a nervous disposition on roller coasters, then you may not want to join us right on board with Nathan Foster, because he's definitely right now on a ride to remember as they make the way through turn 3 and heading on towards turn number 5 they go. Foster gets a good run out the corner, but Walker nails it on the second half of the exit, and as they make the way down, he gains gradually, does Foster down to 2/10 now as they clear turn 4. Up towards Adelaide they go, onto the brake shortly. Foster backs out, however he's not close enough to affect the pass as they head on him. Again, so close under braking there, and a mistake from Walker, and that may be enough here as Foster's going to look round the outside. It's going to be side by side as they head up towards Nürburgring. Walker on the inside, Foster on the outside. They get ready to battle on the brakes, but in the end Foster backs out, knowing 2 does not go into 1 here, and you can see Walker on that inside line, that compromise line, really has to spear his way between the 2 apexes. Meanwhile, Foster can be a lot more sweeter and smoother, but it's not quite worked out there as Walker's been able to get the car stopped and keep it with track limits, and Foster has to try and go again. But look at Kersop behind as well. James Kersop now, the delta between the two of them has been slashed in half, given the battling they've been going through as they make the way into Imola. Now as they come on through the right into left, we look up to P2, driver here Corey Lazarus, who as he crosses the timeline has been called by Emil Koopmans on that last lap. Koopmans was 4/10, almost 5/10 faster as they come on down, and for them with 3 minutes to go here, and the leader heading on down through turn 4 at the moment. I think Lazarus will need to hold on for what will be another lap after this one based on a quick calculation, but as we see here the New Zealander doing everything he can. Koopmans getting close, and this has been boiling up for quite some time in terms of we have had Koopmans gaining lap after lap. The gap was 8 seconds when we last checked on them, approximately 10 minutes to go, but Koopmans goes around the outside. Lazarus defends. Koopmans goes overly deep into the corner, a lock up there, but releases the brake to avoid flat spotting the tyres too much. But there Koopmans showing his first signs of going on the offensive, and it's a mistake this time. He won't get many more opportunities. He's got to play it right for Apex Business to get the job done, and the Dutchman right now, I think, just having to calm himself down a little bit and get himself set up for the next potential shot at this as he makes his way through turn number 9, coming through 180. He'll now try and build up the pace. Meanwhile, as we look to Ryan Walker and Nathan Foster in the battle of a P9 in the gold class P11, you can see this time making the way out of Adelaide and up towards Nürburgring. Well, Foster now trying to look up the inside, but he can't find the overspeed and therefore has to back out again. But again, trying to find different ways to pressure his rival. But Ryan Walker, to be fair, buying 1 or 2 minor mistakes, really right now unfazed as the satellite racing driver, and really just making sure to make this position his own as he comes on out of 9 and through 10. but as they make the way up towards turn number 12, 13, and roll the way on through Imola shortly, Ash England just in front of them there with a little bit of wobble in the rear end of the car coming into the chicane. I think England right now may just be feeling the pinch of the tyres, but he's running P2 in the silver class, to be fair, by a comfortable margin of what is approximately 5 seconds over the next driver of James Kersop behind, so I don't think he's got too much pressure on him. He just needs to bring it to the end. But meanwhile, it's not the same for Ryan Walker as Nathan Foster does a dummy, sells it, and comes back to the inside as he comes on through. He takes a bit too much apex curb, and it goes wrong 2 wheels his way, but he can't find it on through. But meanwhile, Tim Darracott, with a mistake only moments to go, drops down to P9 overall. What exactly happened to the FFSA Sports driver? Will make his way down into the Complexe du Lycée, and as he came under braking into turn number 5, turn number 15, which they gets hooked up, and then the car goes on round, but he slides it and brings it to a stop before it goes the other way, and the FX Esports driver in the end not actually losing any places, just losing time as we return to live pictures. Now with under a minute to go, our race leader currently making his way into Imola. It could be that we are on our final lap, but meanwhile, forget the fault for a second as Walker there on the inside, Foster goes around the outside, and he just simply does not get the power down in a straight line. The car lets go him right at the end, and Nathan Foster, well, that is the ultimate frustration when you've got it all said and done. You've made the overspeed, you've made it work, and in the car, the ridge does not want to settle, it does not want to grip up, and Nathan Foster loses that again, and he loses that to James Kersop this time. And now for Nathan Foster, well, this is going to be, I think, a drop that he's not going to rise from as rapidly with the time remaining, because our race leader has just gone into one more lap. We're going to have 19 laps of racing here when it's all said and done, and meanwhile 2 drivers are going on to the 19th lap right now. It's Corey Lazarus of Blackout Motorsport New Zealand with Samuel Sprout into the pit lane, and surely Sprout has not picked up a drive-through penalty. No, it's far worse. He's had to take fuel by looks of things right there at the very end for Sprout, and it all falls into ashes right now as he drops all the way down the order, and the battle for P2 rages on, and Blackout Motorsport New Zealand will not have 2 drivers in the top 5 of the gold class as Sprout returns to the circuit, P8 overall, P7 in class. Meanwhile, Corey Lazarus holds on there to P2 for now as the pressure continues to build behind, and in fact Sprout has been passed by Tim Darracott as well on pit lane exit. So for Sprout, it could not have been a worse moment to run out of fuel or not being able to have enough fuel to get to the very end. And as we see Lazarus here making his way into Nürburgring, well, I don't think he'll be thinking about his teammate right now, although when he hears about it afterwards, I think the New Zealander is going to be absolutely gutted for Sprout, but instead he's got to focus on keeping Koopmans behind him as they come on through 180 and make the way up towards Imola. But as they come on through, it's a long way to go for them with half a lap, and anything can happen as they head up towards the next right-left sequence, but with a 0.3 of a second advantage, I think Lazarus will be safe for the time being. But meanwhile, here is your race leader, ladies and gentlemen, and with a 14-second advantage right now, I think that says it all. He has been absolutely faultless coming through the field from the start of the feature, and as he crosses the line, it will be Philip Hammer who is your winner in the feature in round 6 of the Porsche Cup Season 5 golden overall winner. And then it's between Corey Lazarus and Emil Koopmans in the run to the line as they make the way through turn 16 and 17. I think Lazarus has got it done. He takes the checker flag, and Corey Lazarus takes P2 in class ahead of Emil Koopmans P3. That is your overall and gold podium, and then it will be Leah Holmes who comes on through P4 overall for ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple ahead of Karen Willisey. And here is Roxanne Marshall to make it a double, and indeed her first double in the Porsche Cup. 2 wins out of 2 here today in the silver class of the 24-hour Bunty People driver. A brilliant result for Marshall ahead of Marcel Fritsch P7. Tim Darracott comes on home P8 ahead of, I think, an absolutely dejected Samuel Sproul, and then it will be Ash England who completes the top 10. P2 in the silver class ahead of Ryan Walker, who managed to hold off the charge of Nathan Foster time and time again, and James Kersop will round off your silver podium as we have, I believe, a Porsche going flying on through there, and that may just be Nathan Foster, but I may be incorrect on that. But James Kersop P12 in the 99 car, the privateer, wasn't to be his win today, but still a good drive all the same. Nathan Foster P13, Shane P across the line P14, P4 in the silver class, and then it will be Glenn Humberstone for ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple behind his sister team driver who comes on home to complete the silver top 5, P15 overall. And then shortly we will have Matt Maddox, who has really struggled today at the Magny-Cours circuit with a number of lockouts, but he's never given up, and the BDM Racing driver P16 ahead of Craig Shield P17, who finishes a lap down Indeed, that's how all of our drivers continue to run at finish. 17 drivers finishing out of a grand total of 19 who started, with the 2 retirements of Jack Ward and also Danny Hugendorn. And also we had those 2 early retirements of Alistair Hatcher and also Ross McPhail. But what a race for Roxanne Marshall, the 24-hour Punty People driver, having a phenomenal run today. And well, we were wondering when a win would come for Roxanne Marshall for the simple reason throughout the entirety of Alton Park, showing great promise. Didn't quite work out. Interlagos not quite on the pace to win, but still up there to battle for the podium. And today Marshall really has been a class of her own. If it hasn't been pace, it has been consistency, and the most critical thing of all, she's not made a single mistake in either race. Every other silver driver can chalk up at least one minor error, but not for Marshall. It has been absolutely faultless. But with that faultless performance in mind, let's come to our results, of course subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after a grand total of 30 minutes run in the feature race, or equating to 19 laps of racing in round 6 of the Porsche Cup Season 5, brought to you by UKSimRacing, concluding our racing, of course, at the Magny-Cours circuit today, where we can see Philip Hammer taking the win, making it 2 wins out of 2 on his debut for WS Racing Esports there by 15 seconds, and that's overall in the gold class as well, ahead of Corey Lazarus, Blackout Motorsport New Zealand's driver there, and we can see there in the chat, Medmo saying Corey is the Kiwi Minister of Defence, double class win as well in both classes for a good number of drivers, and it really worked out for Corey Lazarus in terms of holding on all the way, and then Emil Koopman's P3 in what was a great battle all the way to the finish, but he couldn't quite make that P2 position come to him, only 3 tenths off at the finish for Apex Missers. Lee Holmes P4 there for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, ahead of Cameron Willisey, and the Willisey Racing driver there not having a great start to his feature, but recovering well with Roxanne Marshall, your winner in the silver class, P6 overall for 24-hour Punty People by a sizable margin over her next closest rival. Between her and Ash England were P7 Marcel Fritsch, in P8 Tim Darracott, and P9 Samuel Sproul, and the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver there I think will be absolutely fuming with himself for not having enough fuel to go to the end and bringing home what would have been a top 5, and both of their team would have been in the top 5 today, but still plenty more races to come for the New Zealander, with Ash England P10 there for Willisey Racing, P2 in the silver class, and then best of the rest there in P11 Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, holding off Nathan Foster in the end, with Nathan Foster being separated from Walker by James Kersop in P12, the privateer there making it P3 in the silver class in what has been a difficult day for James Kersop, but again a sign of his promise to come. And then Nathan Foster P13 for Simam Racing, ahead of Shane Piggott and Glenn Humberstone, and then Matt Maddox, the last driver to finish on the lead lap in what was P16, had a Craig Shield who finished a lap down, and then we had the 2 early retirements under racing of Jack Ward and Danny Hugendorn, with Alistair Hatcher and Ross McPhail not able to make it to the grid at the very start of the race. So 19 drivers started, 17 drivers finished, but fantastic racing all the way round, ladies and gentlemen. And now we very shortly get ready for what is our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are now back for our post-round interviews. Today, we've only got one driver for interview, and that is Corey Lazarus, our gold driver, running in the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand machinery. But as his races went today, well, he had a good run of form, with the fact of P5 in class in the sprint, P10 overall, finding himself at the back of a group of silvers, but managed to turn things around very nicely in the feature, with all the chaos on the open lap and the opening couple of corners really working out his way and enabling him to come on through the field. But as he joins me now in the interview room, Corey, it was a day of two halves for many a driver, and yourself included, but what a way to have a run on your return after not being with us at Interlagos, if my memory serves me correctly. We were fifth in the sprint and a second in the feature. You must be absolutely pleased with how it played out in France today.
Yeah, good morning, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear, you're coming through.
Yeah, excellent, mate. Yeah, it was terrific fun sitting out for a few weeks there with some technical issues. Yeah, great to be back on the grid, having a lot of fun. Quali was a bit wild, played up with the setup a little bit too much, and then just ran out of time, so I didn't get a lap in really. So it was great fun, really good fun.
So we're qualifying, of course, the Magny-Cours circuit being relatively new to iRacing, this also being a circuit which is really punishing for driver and car alike. How did you find the circuit when you're out there by yourself just trying to put the laps in?
Look, when you're by yourself and you practice it, it's not so bad, but when you've got the pressure of seeing everybody clocking up laps, you know, that added pressure just sometimes makes you make those tiny little millisecond mistakes, you know, so it's fun, but there's it's just that added pressure that there's a learning curve to have to deal with.
Oh, indeed. And as you mentioned moments ago, not quite hooking up the lap you perhaps wanted in qualifying, but then translating it into the sprint race. A relatively good start in the sprint, albeit finding yourself battling in amongst both gold drivers and silvers. And that was just the run to turn number 5 on the opening lap. And then it all came together at the hairpin.
Yeah, look, we started, what, 20th or 19th or somewhere way down the back, and then there was some pretty massive netcode with Roxanne and myself at turn 2, so it put me sort of right at the back, and then approaching that hairpin, it was like cars scattered everywhere, so we gained quite a few positions there. It was quite lucky, and just slowly but surely managed to finish in 10th in the sprint. I got lucky, I think. If everybody had stayed on track, we definitely would have finished up that high.
Well, the luck went your way and you're able to capitalise on it accordingly, and with the reverse grid, of course, of a top 8, not quite able to get into that reverse grid, but lined up behind a lot of gold drivers who got inverted down. What was your focus going into the feature?
Follow Philip Hammer, really. It's, you know, everybody in that reverse grid still wants to win and push really hard. And again, we got lucky. I'm not too sure who it was at turn 2. I think it might have been Danny Hugendorn, that there was a crash and 2 cars went off, and then I think Cameron Willisey, he spun down at turn 9, I think, so we got a freebie there. Yeah, so the main focus was just try and stay on track, and you know, once the gap to Philip got to like 3.5 to 4 to 5 seconds, and you could see it growing every lap, it was like, okay, well, we're not catching Phil, let's just try and consolidate to second place, and that's what we did for the rest of the race.
Going over the course of the race, of course, Philip Hammer in the end breaking off and really running off into the distance as time wore on. But for yourself still, keeping your head down and putting in every lap you could from start to finish. And, well, with regards to once you cleared the silvers, you're breaking away and your teammate was with you for some time. It must have been a bit of a proud moment to see the 2 Blackout Motorsport New Zealand cars running in formation.
Yeah, that was really cool. Actually, I could see Sammy back there in the rear view mirror, and he was having a good battle, and he was right up with us for quite some time. It was quite proud, but yeah, look, once Philip got away, it was no point in trying to push too hard, trying to make mistakes, and just try to keep that gap to Emil. I could, you know, most of the race it was hovering about that 2-second gap, but then I made a couple of mistakes here and there, and he closed right up, and he was making me sweat. He's super fast. It was really good fun.
Well, indeed, and we've just had a question from Medmo in the YouTube chat asking how sweaty after race 2 was Corey. Now, if I remember correctly, given you're based in the southern hemisphere of the world, it's very early in the morning at the moment. And firstly, thank you for being awake so early in the morning to go racing with us. But secondly, it's right now the peak of what is the Australian and New Zealander summer. So therefore, you must have been sweating quite a bit in that battle.
Yeah, unbelievably hot, mate. Like, we live in an old house anyway that doesn't have a lot of airflow, so I've got a tiny pedestal fan next to me blowing air on my left-hand side. I don't drive with a shirt on or anything because it's just so hot, and I've got to try and be quiet, so I can't start up the portable air conditioner because it'll wake up the household. So yeah, it was perspiration, and a lot of it, and Emil was contributing to most of it.
Oh, absolutely brilliant, and goodness me, the circumstances, but still, you did everything right to hold him at bay, and it looked as though, for the most part, every time he got close, you just seemed to find a way of really thwarting his ability to attack. Just take us through defending at Magny-Cours from your perspective.
Well, there's really only a couple of real key corners to defend here, like the hairpin at 5. You can dive up the inside at 9. You know, there's an off chance up at 14 and then one down at 15. So Emil's a smart driver. He's not going to do anything silly. So I just knew if I could hit my break points leading into those particular corners, he's not going to make contact. And there was a couple of times there where he did get up beside me and then made a couple of mistakes himself. So really, not the whole track I wasn't concerned about. It's just those key corners and really focusing on the brake markers and putting the car in the right spot to deter any dive bombs. And yeah, it worked.
Well, did it worked out really nicely in the end and giving you another podium to your tally. And of course, after today, we make our way to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit in a week's time. How are you feeling for the very technical German circuit?
Yeah, I quite enjoy Hockenheim. I've done a couple of laps around there in the past. It's again, there's just a couple of really key corners to nail, some long straights, some good passing opportunities, some good racing to be had. And again, Philip Hammer is absolutely lightning around there, so should be another tough race for sure, but very enjoyable track. You're looking forward to it immensely.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And I should just point out that we do have Emil Cooper's in the YouTube chat right now saying he's taking notes with regards to your defensive strategies.
Oh, he's a good lad. It was good fun. He's awesome.
Oh, I was glad to hear the camaraderie between the two of you. And with regards to, of course, we've talked about the Hockenheimring. And just before we let you go, Corey, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a big thank you to live on the broadcast today?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, UK staff for putting this on. It's a really cool league and awesome dudes in here. And yourself for your efforts and all the the guys in the grid, and particularly Sammy, my teammate. He's the brains in the team. He does all my technical setup. I'm a little bit illiterate when it comes to computer stuff like that. So yeah, big thanks to Sammy for helping set up delivery and then the trading paints and everything else involved with the tech side of things.
Oh, that's absolutely great to hear, particularly the camaraderie between yourself and Mr. Samuel Sproul. And we look forward to seeing you both at the German circuit in a week's time. But once again, Corey, thank you for joining us in the interview. Congratulations on your results today, and have a great day. And we look forward to seeing you at the Hockenheimring next week.
You too, Paul. Thanks very much, mate.
All the best. To hearing there from Corey Lazarus, the number 44 driver in the gold class machine for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand. And as we see him tearing his way down the goal straight in the replay in the background here, having a really good run of races after what was a very difficult qualifying session, ending up qualifying right at the back of the grid, not really able to put the lap time in he wanted, and it was all about trying to come through the field. Now, yes, you could argue, much like you were saying, a lot of luck on his side in the sprint race with the major calamity of multiple drivers coming together in the Adelaide hairpin, but with a number of drivers being involved in that incident, of course, Lazarus would rise and he would make his way up into just inside the top 10. Not quite eligible for that reverse grid, but still putting himself right amongst a good number of the gold drivers who inverted down off of the front positions, and with the silvers all at the front, it really did bring the gold drivers together. And of course that incident at the start of the feature race also just adding a little bit more fortune into the mix, but still, fortune's there, but it's also about putting your foot down and making sure to hold on from start to finish without mistakes. And well, to Corey Lazarus, he was flawless all the way through the feature race, even with the pressure from Emil Koopmans, and a deserved P2 in class and P2 overall come the end of the day in round number 6, and definitely one to watch out for in terms of taking more podiums as the season goes on. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that marks our one and only interviewee of today from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, of Corey Lazarus in the gold class in the 44 car. And perhaps next time we'll have a couple more interviews available to us. But at the same time as well, we do understand a lot of our drivers are exhausted after the racing, and also they may have to get up early for a final day of work tomorrow or other things in between. But you did hear from our New Zealander, and now it is time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community in terms of the series we run and everything else in between, well, you are free to check out our official website, which you saw on screen earlier today at UKSimRacing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you'd like to go to our Twitter, it's available there at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_, where you can hear all the latest tweets with regards to our upcoming racing series and also the series that we compete in as an official esports team. Also, a big thank you to our affiliates, and to take you through them in turn, we have at Swello Meta Sim Racing Coaching their YouTube URL available on screen. And the reason why you should listen to Swello Omeda, I hear you ask, given the fact there are so many sim racing coaches out there, so what makes Swello Omeda so special? Well, it is the fact that Swello Omeda will tailor the coaching course specifically to you, looking to essentially gain a whole 10th, a whole second, alternatively looking to find a more consistent way of running the car or optimizing your tyre preservation. Swello Omeda has a course specifically for you. And also, whereas a lot of coaches decide to point out everything that you do wrong, the difference with Swello is that he'll point out one or two things at a time, the 3 key things you need to focus on, rather than giving you an entire shopping list of coaching aspects that you need to worry about. And that means that you can focus on the key things that help you improve as a sim racing driver. And also a multi-time champion in the official iRacing series, including in the 2021 Porsche Cup series. Therefore, he does definitely know what he's talking about and is absolutely flying fast to go in between. We also have their Race Anywhere, their web address, raceanywhere.co.uk, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Also, Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, whether it be in sim racing or real-world motorsport, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsporting ambitions. And then last but not least, Amazon their web address, amazon.co.uk, and they are the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer and Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including, but not limited to, Amazon Prime, Fire Tablets and Fire TV. But now, ladies and gentlemen, as we turn our attention to next time, round 7 and 8 lie around the corner on Thursday the 26th of January 2023. We head to Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. We'll be taking on the Grand Prix iteration of the circuit that, after its redesigned by Hermann Tilke, originally a controversial circuit, being so different from the run into the neighbouring forest, but now a much-loved circuit for its mixture of technical characteristics in the arena sections and also a good number of straights. It's going to be interesting to see how our drivers are bold on the brakes as they battle into the hairpins, but also sweep their way through the arenas and keep it pointed in a straight line at all times. Who will be the master of the ring in round 7 and 8? We'll find out in a week from now. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.